All right, I believe we are all set to get started.
Okay, we will call the meeting of the Rockbridge County Planning Commission to order. First with a roll call, Commission Member Hennis, I'm here. Commission Member Kramer.
Here.
Commission Member Lucas.
Here.
Commission Member Whitmore.
Here.
Commission Member Watkins, absent. In addition to citizens attending the meeting in person, citizens have several options to view or participate in the Zoom meeting webinar as described below. We will do our best to take citizen comment remotely. There are two options for citizens to offer comment. To join the Rockbridge County Planning Commission Zoom webinar, the link is available on the county website to copy into the address line on your browser. To join by telephone, you may dial into one of the numbers listed on the county website. Webinar ID and password are there for your convenience. Citizens wishing to simply view the meeting live or after the fact can do so on the Rockbridge County Planning Commission YouTube channel, also available on the county website. If you wish to make a citizen comment as a Zoom meeting participant, you will use the raise your hand feature. You can press the raise hand button on the bottom of your Zoom window or press *9 if you are calling in by telephone. This time we will proceed with the meeting. First, we have citizen comments for anything that is not on the agenda. Do you have anyone physically here to speak?
We're signed up for citizen comments.
Okay. Do we have anyone on Zoom or by phone?
No, we have no one raised hands for Zoom comments.
Okay. Agenda item 3 is the approval of the March 8th, 2023 meeting minutes. Do you all have a chance to review those? Any questions, comments? Okay, we'll look for a motion.
A motion to approve as submitted.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And the motion passes. We'll now go to board reports. Mr. Sladen has a Board of Supervisors report and a Rockbridge zoning text amendment.
Yeah, so two actions by the Board of Supervisors pertaining to Office of Community Development, of course, at their March 27th, 2023 meeting. The first was Cave Mountain Mini Storage located at 1467 Wolf Faulkner Highway. That was a special exception permit, of course, to develop and operate a mini storage building, a mini storage business, I should say. With that, the Board of Supervisors approved that with the conditions as recommended by the Planning Commission. Second action item for that same meeting was the Rockbridge County zoning text amendments to provide for upper and lower story apartments as a permitted use in the B1 zoning with certain stipulations. And that was also approved as recommended by the Planning Commission.
Thank you. Agenda item 5, Lisa and Joseph Glass, 505 Herring Hall Road, Natural Bridge, Virginia, 24578. Application for a special exception permit to operate a pet grooming business in the agricultural and general uses A2 zoning district. We have a staff and an applicant presentation.
Yes, Ms. Glass is here representing the project. If you don't mind, I'm gonna share my screen and just share my GIS to get everyone oriented. All right, Lisa Glass, 505 Herring Hall Road, Natural Bridge, Virginia, has made an application for a special exception permit in order to develop a kennel. In this particular case, with the draft conditions, the kennel would be limited to a pet grooming business. Property is owned by Joseph Glass, same address as above, and is again located 505 Herring Hall Road, Natural Bridge, Virginia. As you can see here, the property consists of 4.17 acres on the south side of Herring Hall Road, further identified as tax map number 106-1-1C. Property is located in the Natural Bridge Magisterial District. Property is located in the Agricultural and General Use District. That would be the A2 zoning, and per section 603.03-5 of the Land Development Regulations, commercial kennels are used by special exception in the A2 zoning district. Per section 302.116, a kennel is defined as any location where raising, grooming, caring for, or boarding of dogs, cats, or other small animals for commercial purposes is carried on. The current proposal is to limit the use of the property to grooming. No boarding, breeding, nor training of pets will be is proposed. The following conditions, as noted in your package there, the following conditions could be utilized for the special exception application. Number one, the business shall be limited to grooming of dogs and or cats. Number two, no overnight boarding, breeding, or training permitted. Number 3, no more than a total of 3 dogs and or cats allowed on the property at one time for grooming. The hours of operation for the grooming services shall be limited to Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. through 5 p.m. Number 5, contingent upon county building and apartment approval, Virginia Department of Transportation, VDOT, of course, and Health Department approvals. Mentioning those last 2, Ms. Glass has contacted VDOT, but they have not had an opportunity to come on site, which is unusual for it to get to this position without some sort of preliminary nod from VDOT, which, as y'all know, what VDOT looks at is site distance to and from the site, and then the entrance itself, as far as the throat of the entrance, that type of thing. As far as the health department approvals, that's in there as well. This is a self-contained unit, but there would have to be, once it's being self-contained, it would have to be properly disposed of. So it's my understanding that Mr. and Mrs. Glass has reached out to the health department to see what those approvals would take. With that, Ms. Glass is here to answer any questions. If you want to come on up to answer any questions and review additional details that staff may have missed. And I'll go ahead and stop sharing this, but I can certainly bring this back up if needed.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Do you have anything to add, or would you just like to answer questions? Or
I don't have really anything to add.
okay.
I'd just like to know a little bit. I mean, is this a business that you've been doing? How did you get into this? Is this something you've been doing a while? Or?
Well, I started about 2 years ago, and I worked in Forest, Virginia, under Steph's Bubbles and Bows. I worked for them for about a week and a half. It was too far for me to go because it's in Forest and you have to go over
501.
Anyway, so I worked up in Covington with a lady, and she said that after one day of working with her that I was ready to go and start my own business. She did the same thing. She worked with the owner of Pampered Pets.
Okay.
And anyway, it's just something that I have a passion about, especially the cats.
Mm.
One of the things I wanted to do was give back to the community about the cats. You know, I have a Facebook friend, Mary Huffman, that is having a hard time. Cats Unlimited, Cats Lives Matter, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just in my heart to give back to the community
Mm.
that I live in.
Right.
And it's just something I want to do. And I don't have that potential outside of this business.
Do you have to get any certifications? Is there any kind of licensing or anything that you get to become a pet
In the
groomer?
United States, you don't need to have a certificate for grooming. It is unregulatory. However, I can go to groomer website. It's at the national level, and I can get a master's certification for
Mhm.
that. One thing I have to do is I go and take an 8-hour course, and then they'd test me on a few different dogs, and then they'd say, congratulations, you're doing exactly what you know you've been doing, but
Right.
here's a certificate to show everybody and make
Right.
them feel at ease.
Sure.
Another thing I looked up is Animal Clinic of Rockbridge. I wanted to work over there, but they said something about going fear-free. Some kind of certificate the whole staff is doing.
Mm.
I looked into doing that on my own. If it's going to make people feel more comfortable about me, then I could do that. And that's a $400 certificate.
Mhm.
But, you know, I'm willing to do whatever to
Right.
make people happy, comfortable. You know, a lot of people would be coming to me. These are their babies, you know, they're not just
Right.
pets.
Sure. Thank you. You guys have any questions about the project or any of that? Okay.
Just have one. I drove by your property. I'm pretty sure I was right there and looked at the entrance, and that is a concern. And understand you're going to be talking with VDOT, but in looking at the map, I was wondering if there was any possibility of. Looks like there's a building right on your property line, and there's a driveway that goes right to your property. Is there any? Have you talked to your neighbors about a possibility of using that as an entrance, or doesn't go quite to your property line, but it looks like it goes very close.
It is right there. And the only thing I can think of is asking if we could lease that portion of their property. Give them something per month so my clients can come in and out and not have a problem.
That may not still not meet VDOT requirements, but it looks like it's better than what you have currently.
Right. And another thing is there's a little greenhouse next to it where my husband has brought up the point in the past that he'd like to purchase the greenhouse and the 2-car garage, but he just hasn't gone and asked. He says that every time that he wants to speak with Miss Burke, it seems like somebody's there and he just doesn't want to bother her.
Okay. Any others?
No, I
Questions?
just have a question for Chris. when we get-
Okay, very good. Okay, thank you. If we need to bring you back up, we will, but for now, I think we're set. We do have a question for Chris.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Chris, wait, you have a gentleman raised his hand.
We could go ahead and open the public hearing portion of the meeting.
Okay, you want to do that now?
If you want to go ahead.
Okay, sure. Okay.
Come on up,
Um,
say your name and
it did- Yep. At this time, we're going to open the public hearing. If there's anyone physically present who would like to speak, you are welcome to come on up.
Thank you. I apologize for not being familiar with the procedure. It's the
No.
first time I've ever been here.
Welcome.
Thanks. I want to thank the commission for opening it up to public comment. My name is Scott Miller, and I live on the adjacent property to Miss Glass. Okay. I'm not here to try to stop the potential zoning and licensing of her kennel. But I do have a series of questions, concerns that I would like to raise so that I understand and so that maybe necessary restrictions are put in place for those who live on different sides for her. Okay. I heard and I heard the restrictions that are putting place, that is for grooming only, not boarding. And obviously, all of my concerns have to do with noise. Okay. Different breeds of dogs are going to certainly make more noise than others. The fact that it is a grooming only and not overnight boarding certainly gives me some solace or comfort as her next door neighbor. Okay. Business hours, that was mentioned as well. My only concern that I would like to voice to the commission is that as it pertains to Saturday hours, should I have family coming in on holiday weekends or whatever, and we're having a cookout on Memorial Day, Labor Day, whatever, that we would have a cacophony of barking animals on our Saturday afternoons. So I would respectfully ask the commission to consider a Monday through Friday type of restriction on the zoning. Last but not least, well, weekends and holidays, I've addressed that. And then I guess my next question would be maybe more to Ms. Glass, but I wanted to put it on the record with y'all would this kennel be indoor? Or are we talking about the potential for having dogs and things like that on the outdoors, or in the outdoors, which of course would then address the volume or the noise concerns that we have as our next door neighbors.
Okay.
So those are my only concerns, and I speak for my wife as well. And I just want to thank the commission for letting me have a moment to speak.
Thank you. Thanks for your input.
Thank you.
Mhm. Okay, anybody else here that would like to speak? I don't think so. So we will now take comments by computer and phone. At this time, I'll ask staff if there are any citizens that would like to make comments from Zoom,
There are not,
phone,
no.
staff. Let's see. So staff will go through the list. Staff will state there appears to be everyone, but no further comments. We have no further comments then.
No further comments.
Okay, so at this time, we need to decide, I think that we're waiting for some information from VDOT. They haven't had a chance to get out there, so we need to determine whether we want to continue the public hearing, or if you guys, want to close the public hearing and then just set over the meeting until we can get some more information from VDOT and the health department.
I think, are we discussing or?
Yep, we can discuss. I mean, we've got some options here for whether we're going to close the public hearing or whether we want to leave it open for next time if we're going to set this over.
Yeah, I'd like to get some more information or see some more stuff from VDOT, because when I was out there, you know, it's a unique location and good.
Mhm. Okay. Do y'all have a thought on whether we should leave the public hearing open or?
I would recommend, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, Robert, because I think you were going to say the same thing I
I was
was.
just gonna leave it open.
That
There's
would
no
be staff's
reason. Yeah,
recommendation.
I
I
was
mean,
gonna say
it's
there's-
additional, so everyone's clear. We have to re-advertise. We have to do we have to do the certified mail before, but whenever we're anticipating new information, that's obviously a good opportunity for additional comments, if you will. So,
Okay.
it's-
So will
I
we
would
make a
recommend-
motion to continue and also then a motion to set it over?
You would utilize the, so we prepared, obviously,
Oh, I see.
a
It's as
series
if
of
it's
motions,
closed.
so it'd be to
Okay.
continue, if
Okay.
that's the desire.
Very good. And I guess in the meantime, I would like to answer I guess his question, which is this kennel going to be indoors or outdoors?
So the proposal is, it's actually a mobile kennel. Oddly enough, y'all may have remembered the kennel operation on Forge Road that was recently approved 2 years ago, the Reynolds, I think it was. This is that exact same mobile unit that the glasses
Okay.
have acquired.
Okay.
So it will be on site. Mostly it is available to be moved off site once they have the original permit. But with that being said, the primary function will be mobile, will be stationary on the property.
So if there are 3 animals, they would all be inside that mobile unit at one time. There's not going to be some outside and some inside. Is that correct?
If you could come up.
Yep.
If we don't speak in the mic, you can't hear anything.
Yeah. So yeah, just wondering, we said a limit of 3 animals on site at any time. Would they all 3 be inside that mobile unit at one time, or would some of them be kennelled
I'd
outside?
have is 2 inside at one time.
Okay. So if there was
If
a
I'm lucky enough.
right, if there was a third one though, you're not keeping any of them outside though while you're working on the other
I'm
pets.
actually planning on putting up a fence, hopefully a 4-foot fence,
Mhm.
to stave any runaways.
Okay.
Somebody that hasn't been there before, or a cat that's uneasy, or
Okay.
something like that. I want to make my neighbors happy.
Right. And the other concern was about whether we needed to do the Saturday hours. I mean, is that something you're pretty set on needing to do Saturday hours? He was asking about, could we just do weekdays, just because he's worried about weekends, which I get that, or maybe not the holidays, that
Well, I
kind of
wouldn't
thing.
open on holidays anyway. I'm Christian, so I'll take every Sunday and every holiday off.
Right, sure. But that's just.
Saturday, usually that's the biggest day, but I could go elsewhere or just not have it altogether.
Okay.
I think I heard his concern was if the animals are outside, if they're going to be all inside, maybe one outside, then maybe that alleviates your concern about Saturdays and noise, potential noise.
Well, she said the one wouldn't even be outside. That would just be if one got away. She was
Yeah.
going to have a fence around.
I mean,
so-
we already have 2 horses, an emu, 6 chickens, 2 dogs, 6 cats.
Yeah. Right. Does that alleviate your concern that it's at least all inside? Well, sure. No, these are good. No. Right. Understood.
Like I said, I don't necessarily, I'm not here to stop what it is.
Right. I just wondered if that alleviated your concern about if you have guests over, you're not going to have a bunch of dogs because they're inside.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily have an issue with that. I just wanted to have my
Concern.
about noise on the
Sure.
record,
Absolutely.
so that if it becomes an issue in the future,
Understood.
and address those concerns at a later date, if that's something the commission allows. I don't know if there's like a trial period. This is the first time I've ever been
Right.
involved in a situation like this.
Sure.
So I'm kind of at your discretion, or if you're
Mhm.
explain to me how this works, is basically what I'm.
Right. Okay.
So it would not be, as far as the conditions go, the conditions are in some cases attempt to alleviate some of the concerns. With that being said, if there are concerns now, this would be the appropriate time to address those concerns because
Right.
we do not have the ability. We have the ability to revoke a special exception permit when they're in violation of the conditions. And so if there are no violations of the condition, you do not have the ability, the Board of Supervisors does not have the ability to revisit those in a timely, every couple of years.
Right.
Let's put it that way.
Okay.
So
Understood.
we would
Do you
want, we
understand
would
what he's
take
saying?
Mr. Miller's comments and potentially modify the conditions, which I think some of them have been addressed,
Mhm.
obviously, but we would want to make sure that the attempted conditions or the conditions attempt to address the concerns that are raised.
Right. Understood.
To address this class's concerns and everything, I mean, we're talking about a $3 maximum. Crying out loud, we were so close to 81.
Mhm.
Dogs might provide,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
But, keep in mind, I'm not,
Understood.
I didn't know that there was a $3 restriction. I'm, when I received this document from y'all, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, they're bringing in 24 dogs and all of them are bear hunting dogs.
Right. Understood.
All night, what I'm
Yeah.
saying? It's kind of a worst case scenario.
Right. Understood. This is the place to bring it up. And I think we have addressed them. We've had enough of these that I think we had an idea of what the draft conditions needed to be to alleviate those concerns. So hopefully we have. And I think with it being indoors and being a limit of 3 dogs, I think that should alleviate. You're not going to have a bunch of beagles and bear hunting dogs,
Right.
having a,
And that's fine.
Okay.
If the commission decides to approve it, I'm not,
Right.
I'm not here to stop it. I'm just here to, document or put some things on the record so that if it becomes.
Thank you.
an issue, we can revisit it. at another
We
time.
appreciate that. Yeah.
That's
Thank you. So I think that's all the questions we have. We will go ahead and make a motion. Hopefully, somebody want to make a motion here? Go ahead.
Sure, I can make a motion to continue the public hearing to the next meeting of the Planning Commission on May 10th, 2023. And that's for the applicant to provide the following additional information: entrance and driveway plan for public access.
Okay. And you're going to work with VDOT on that, and I guess also with the health department on what you need to do for that. Okay, so we have a motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. And the motion passes.
Perfect.
Thank you.
And for Mr. Miller's benefit, when y'all continue the public hearing, it's the same advertising requirements as this one. So you will receive an additional piece of certified mail.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much.
Perfect.
We
Thank
appreciate your
y'all.
participation. Mhm.
Thanks.
Okay. Now we are on agenda item 6, comprehensive plan update. Staff has got a presentation for us.
Yes. So as you know, we are on the economy chapter, and Vivica at last month's meeting reviewed the updates to the economy chapter. There was some discussion on the community development committee and some suggested items that were incorporated. So Vivica, as always, has done a tremendous job on updating comprehensive plan. And we have provided those requested updates from that committee have been done, all except for, I think, the Mountain Gateway and some of those items that we still need to address. Name change, the years of operation, that type of thing. So that's essentially the same information as before. So as you know, additionally, the information that was provided in the Planning Commission package was the draft Rockbridge County Strategic Economic Plan. And so it's my understanding that the EDA, the Economic Development Authority, has reviewed and I assume recommended approval of the draft to the Board of Supervisors, I think is the proper protocol. The Board of Supervisors is slated to have a preliminary review of it, or at least discussion of it, at their second April meeting, which I believe is the 24th, and then potentially adopt it in late May or early June. So moving forward, I wanted to get that document in front of y'all And moving forward, we will certainly, as the discussion continues with the Board of Supervisors and other representatives, community members on the Strategic Economic Development Plan, we will certainly incorporate some of those goals and objectives into the comprehensive plan. To be clear, there are two separate documents. We have the comprehensive plan on one side and the strategic economic plan on the other side, but also that they would be working in conjunction with obviously common goals. With that being said, Ms. Brandy Flint, the Director of Economic Development, is online with us via Zoom and is prepared to answer any questions that y'all may have on the strategic economic plan.
One of my questions I think I brought up to you was I just thought it was confusing on that first executive summary page, 1, 2, 3, on the fourth paragraph. It says the target audience of the plan is local leaders, authority members, current and potential investors. I didn't know what authority members referred to. Is that RCPSA?
That's actually the Economic Development Authority.
Okay, I just think we need to clarify that.
Clarify that. Yes, ma'am. I'll make a note of that. Thank you.
And the other question I had was over on page 6 of that under the county description. I just thought it talks about Rockbridge's, it's in the first paragraph, Rockbridge County's diversified economy has strong manufacturing, trade services, and agricultural sectors. I know in that first paragraph, it talks about educational institution. I just wondered if it shouldn't also be up there. If we're talking about diversified economy, it's manufacturing, trade services, agricultural, and educational institutions. I just thought it should be included there since we then go in the second paragraph to talk about that, but that's just.
I can add that.
And I had one other question on demographic and economic data under the impact of the trends. The third, it says, I'm sorry, the fourth bullet point says currently stable tax base, but headed for a cliff. And I just wanted to understand what that means, a
What
little
page
more
are you on?
clarification. This is on
Yep.
page 7.
Okay, perfect.
Under impact of these trends, the fourth bullet point, headed for a cliff. I guess I just want to know more about that, what that means.
So that's actually come up in discussion twice now. I may be changing the wording on that. That is implying that if we don't increase our labor force participation rate and have younger and then, mid to late 30s, 40s, early 50s people working, then we don't have that tax base. I'm going to do some clarification on that one based on your comments and someone else's. So,
Okay. Great. I was surprised to see we've had an increase of $9,500 in income, per capita income in 13 years? That seems like a lot. I don't know. Is it? I mean,
so it is and it isn't, but with the increases in wages that have happened over the last 4 to 5 years, that's part of the reason there's an increase in the per capita and the.
so this 9,500 was that recent? I mean, when was that data from?
Hold on just one second. I gotta scroll down and pull the exact data up real fast. I do believe that is the 2021 ACS data.
So that would have been for 2021 where they got that.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, I know just personally in our construction business, our guys that were making $15 an hour are making $19 an hour. The other
Yes.
thing that I'm finding in the housing market is I'm still having people who work for the government come to work for VMI and they're being told that they should be able to find a 1-bedroom apartment for $700 and they're not going to find it here. So, I mean, to me, I think that's the biggest problem that we have bringing people here is we just don't have, because that number of rental properties has gone down, rents have gone up, and people just end up, I mean, I've had a number of people say, I'm not going to go to W&L Law School because I can't find anywhere to live. I'm going to go to William and Mary because there's a lot more choices there. So I think that's a huge problem for us.
That's a real good.
That's correct.
Even at Kendall, we have a problem because we can hire the people, but they're coming from 27 miles away. And if you go 27 miles away from Lexington, you're close to other employment.
Right.
Either by the
It's
time
easier
of-
to get, get there. You're not spending the money on the gas and, that kind of thing. So I do think
and
that's a
the
big
housing.
problem.
That's
Yep.
the primary reason.
Mhm.
So we are actually in the middle of a regional housing study that's being done by the Central Shenandoah Planning District Commission. The results of that of that study will be finalized in 2024, but a lot of the demographic data we have on housing is available now. We have asked for some additional deliverables for that study, which includes a housing inventory, a mapping inventory, and a few other items in order for us to have more comprehensive strategies to look at implementing in order to address the housing issue. And you are 100% correct on the rent amounts. I actually had a conversation with Bruce in the rental assistance office regarding the amounts of rent and what they've increased to and what they're going to increase to. And you cannot find a 1-bedroom for 700. There's no way.
No. And I will say, like in Daleville, I'm doing a lot of work down there. We've got a bunch of units and there's a bunch more coming, like 300 units. They've just approved a subdivision down there of 300 more units. And the average rent down there of these new 3-bedroom, 2-bath is like $2,300 a month, so it's definitely not going to be for these people that are working the $19 an hour jobs for sure. It's definitely a problem. But I'll also tell you, I've got 2 investors who are looking for a place here in Rockbridge where they can build some apartments. And, they're like, find me some land, so that's definitely people are interested in building here.
You think that influences the difference in the commuters in and commuters out? Because, we've got a lot more people going out of the county
Mhm.
for work, which means they're living here.
Mhm.
But we don't have the businesses,
Right.
business income.
And I would say
That's a
those are
good sign.
people, I would say those are probably people who have been local, their families are local, they've lived here and they're working out. We've got a lot of young adults, 25 to 30, that are, I know personally that are living at home or have come back home, but they're working in Stanton, they're working in Roanoke or Charlottesville. And there's a lot of people, I think, too, still working on the computer. A lot of kids are like, whatever job I can get where I can work, whether it's logistics or for a big company, they can work it from anywhere. So,
And one thing about that statistic is that the out commuters for Rockbridge County includes them commuting to the city of Lexington and the city of Buena Vista. So if you look further down, there's like 14 some odd percent and like 7 odd percent. So 21-ish total percent of the out commuters actually work in the city.
so they're just
locally.
coming from Rockbridge County. And again, I'll go back to from the real estate side of things. People want to be in the county because they like the tax rate. They like the fact that they've got, some land and, so they want to be out in the county, but then a lot of times their jobs are in the city at one of the colleges.
Quick commute.
Exactly.
So if you have any additional input, questions, comments, or anything that you would like to address, just feel free to email me. We're still editing the document as it's presented to each group of commissions and boards and interested parties. So if you have any additional comments, please let me know.
Well, I have to say, I really like the action items and deliverables with the dates on. I mean, I think for a strategic plan, you've got to have a target because, if you just kind of put it out there and it's ongoing and some of them are ongoing, but the fact that I really like that. I think this is a good document.
That was one thing I was pushing for, was to ensure that I have goals and objectives to achieve.
Right. Good job.
Thank you.
And as we move forward, definitely staff will have some additional comments as well.
Right.
On not only the comprehensive plan, obviously, but the strategic economic plan as well.
Thank you. All right. Is there anything else we need to do with that? Are we ready to move on to?
That's it. So this one, it's unusual because we obviously not fast tracked by any means, but we thoroughly went through in a timely fashion, 1 month. But we're getting to some more that are just more additional moving parts than some of the other chapters we've had. Vivica has always done an excellent job on updating the comprehensive plan and will continue to do so. But some of these next chapters are not we won't do it month after month like that. So this one's still percolating. I would say.
What is the plan moving forward for involving the public or having, basically, are we going to have like a rough draft, which like we're doing each chapter, and then here's the rough draft of it and get public comment at that
Yes,
time?
we are still planning on, 5 public meetings, 1 in each magisterial district, or maybe 5 public meetings, 1 in each magisterial district, and maybe in the city of Lexington as well, to cover the Buffalo magisterial or district,
Right.
or Carter Creek when they come together type thing. So that is still in the works. Absolutely.
Okay. And a timeline on that? Do we know when those are?
We had a rough timeline going, but I think it was, early fall essentially for the meetings, but we'll just have to see where we are. We
Right.
have been in conversation with the Central Shenandoah Planning District Commission, and we've gotten essentially a quote for turnkey, what I'm calling a turnkey transportation chapter. So, and additionally, some language associated with the land use, some additional assistance with land use chapter potentially.
Okay. Thank you. Y'all have anything else? Okay. All right. We are on to agenda item 7, zoning text amendment, expansion of uses in the zone AE Hatch floodway special flood hazard areas.
Real quick, sorry to interrupt. Just to go backwards for a second, I did want to, one of the questions that was brought up last month when we first looked at the economy chapter was on the agricultural statistics. And the data is from 2012 and 2017, which is the most recent agricultural census that have been released. And I think the question was, they do it every 5 years. The question was, when will the 2022 census be released, and can that data be incorporated? So I did a little bit of research and found that there's a press release from March 16th of this year, and it says that there's still time to participate in the census, meaning that they're still collecting the data. And it says that the National Agricultural Statistics Service census will release the results in early 2024. So that kind of
Be too
limits
late
it.
for us.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm not sure when the 2017 was released, but that likely means it was after 2017. So just so that everyone is aware, that information will likely not be available before we finish this.
Okay. Thank you for the update. We ready for the zoning text amendment? Are you going to present something there?
Yeah, but briefly, and I apologize, I'm not tremendously prepared for this discussion, but as you know, every zoning district in Rockbridge County, regardless if it's in an agricultural zoning district or industrial zoning district, has permitted uses and uses by special exception. So, and we're very familiar with uses by special exception. However, when you're dealing with the floodplain, the floodplain serves as an overlay district, meaning that your existing zoning stays in place, but you have an overlay district of the floodplain. And so depending on what hierarchy of the floodplain you're in, it's more restrictive. And so in the floodway, which is the most restrictive zoning or most restrictive overlay zoning we have, where an engineered study has been performed, and they have essentially velocity flow in the floodway, that currently is a no build zone. There's no structures, there's no dwellings allowed in the floodway, unlike the flood fringe or the zone A, where you can build structures, you can build dwellings. But additionally, as far as the overlay district, per section 608.11-2, 1 through 7 lists uses permitted by special exception. And that is permitted by special exception in the floodway. 608.11 it pertains to the floodway. And so the very first thing it states is no new construction or development shall be permitted within the floodway. Then it goes on to say permitted uses. And so agricultural is obviously a permitted use in the floodway. Private and private recreational uses, such as parks, day camps, picnic grounds, etc., are a permitted use. Accessory residential uses such as yard areas, garden play areas, and loading areas, and then accessory uses to industrial and commercial uses. So all of those are permitted uses. You do not have to get for the uses, not for structures. However, once you get into structures, there's a special exception permit process for agricultural structures or recreational structures. And so we've done that very limited in Rockbridge County. I can recall in the years I've been here, I can recall 3 special exceptions for agricultural buildings all along South River. South River is a predominant floodway associated with historic floods, obviously. With that being said, we go on to 608.11-2, and it's permitted uses by special exception. And again, number 1, are structures except for manufactured homes listed in activities of 1 above. And those are the ones that we just talked about, agricultural buildings by special exceptions. Then it goes on to the actual uses. 2 through 7 are the actual uses that you can do in the floodway, on top of, again, the agricultural zoning districts here, floodplain overlay. And so the overlay only allows certain type of uses in the floodway. Again, a very limited portion of Rockbridge County. Not all rivers or even rivers. Most streams do not have floodway. In fact, I think Irish Creek is the only one that's a creek or a stream that has bona fide floodway. Buffalo Creek, a small portion, but then the floodways are along portions of the Maury River, portions of the James, portions of the South River, those hierarchy areas, if you will. So we had a landowner approach us about doing a wedding event venue in the agricultural zone. So that's the first thing I pulled up. It's a use by special exception. But then again, you look at section 608.11-2, 2 through 7, and there, in my opinion, there are no uses that are similar to a wedding event venue. And so the purpose of the email as always, when I get a zoning text amendment, I forward that along to all members of the Planning Commission and all members of the Board of Supervisors. And it's my understanding that the zoning text amendments can be initiated by a motion of the Planning Commission or by a resolution with a statement of intent by the Board of Supervisors. So based on that email, we had some email correspondence coming back to us, coming back to staff, and requested that the item be put on the agenda for discussion purposes only, obviously.
Anything to discuss?
Well, in this specific example, is it just like a wedding venue, just a temporary shelter, or?
Well, and that's also an unusual part, and it's always an awkward conversation because it always one property, generally speaking, it's one property that's propelling it forward. That was true with our last zoning text amendment with the apartments, as you know. And so this is the property that has propelled this forward is formerly known as Camp Virginia, near the intersection or on the intersection of Millersburg Memorial Highway and Maury River Road. And it's unusual floodway because upstream, you don't have a detailed study, and downstream, you don't have a detailed study. You're required a detailed study to get the engineering, the AE part of it, determined it's a floodway. And as best as I can figure and the landowner can figure, current landowner, it was associated, the reason that this unique property or a portion of the property has a bona fide engineered study and has predetermined floodway was the reconstruction of the Miller-Burke Memorial Bridge that goes over the river in that case. And so that's the property that's propelling it forward. The more unusual part in the floodway is these buildings. There are numerous existing buildings on this. It was a former camp, obviously, and so there are existing numerous buildings on the property. To go a little bit further, we have stipulations in the zoning ordinance about existing structures in the floodplain district, and then 608.14-2 talks about any modification, alteration, repair, etc. of less than 50% of the market value, what I'd like to talk about here in a second, shall be elevated and or floodproof to the greatest extent possible. Then you go into a 50% greater value, and it has to adhere to, shall be undertaken only in full compliance with the provisions of the Virginia Uniform State Building Code. So this is unusual property that has multiple buildings in the floodway. And so the proposal certainly would not be to encourage or to allow a wedding event venue to be constructed, a new building
Right.
to be constructed, because there would be other major modifications to the ordinance to allow that. And it would not be suggested by staff because our membership in the flood program. And with that being said, this particular project would utilize the existing structures, but there would be, most of them are old bunk houses, if you will. Some of them are old bunk houses. There are a few dwellings, bona fide dwellings on the property. I think there's obviously a bathhouse. I believe there's even a chapel, those type of normal camp activities.
So basically what we're looking at is adding to that AE hatched floodway, that this is going to be another allowed use for that property, for
By
that.
special exception, yes,
Right.
yes, ma'am.
So we're just want to add that in addition to the other, which you've got 2 through 7 or whatever.
That
It's
that is the request that has been, forwarded to y'all, obviously.
But we
yes.
still would have, even if we change that, they still have to come before us with a special exception, and we can have concerns and say no because you're in a floodway or whatever, because every property is going to be a little different,
Yes. I mean, if it was a no because you're in the floodway,
Right, you can't-
that would just be, that this would be the time to say, no, you're in the floodway, so we don't want these activities taking place in a floodway.
Right.
We're pretty restrictive in the floodway side of things. And I personally, I don't have a problem with that. I think we're opening up a can of worms we don't really want to open up. That's my opinion. South River, Camille, how many other floods I can't tell you about have come down South River and torn everything up. And it's, there's going to be development of the properties that exist in there. And they'll have to be pretty extensive, I'm sure, to turn it into a wedding venue that people are going to come to. And do we want to go down this path? And what will that do to us? I think you mentioned a flood. Chris, you mentioned a floodway, something with the government that we're part of.
So it's my understanding, we're part of the national floodplain, and I'll have to get it, but because we enforce these rules and regulations, we're part of a larger program associated with flood insurance. With that being said, I'm uncertain at this time. I'm uncertain that they would have any concerns on the use of a property, but they certainly would have concerns on, and have had concerns on the past, on the number of structures we have allowed. At one time, FEMA used to reach out to us, and an annual report to FEMA, we were required to ask how many building permits we issued in the floodplain, how many building permits we issued in the floodway, how many special exceptions in the floodway, et cetera. We have, to be clear, we have not gotten that questionnaire in quite some time, but that was associated, it was my understanding that was associated with the program, the National Floodplain Assistance Program. And I don't think that has.
I guess I was misinformed, because I know at one point I sold something and they were like, you absolutely cannot build on the floodway, but that must have been for residential.
That was definitely, so there is a special exception. Currently, there's a special exception process to build in the floodway, by special exception for agricultural purposes and recreational purposes. But
I think the issue is, in this case, the people are bringing, because there are already buildings there. They just want to be able to use what they already have on their
and
property.
that is the unusual part, because a lot of the floodway are, as you know, are very clear. And the reason they're clear is because they've been flooded over and over type thing. I
Right.
would like to, and there, of course, as you know, there's a long list of zoning text amendments that staff is very interested in pursuing, that are maybe more far reaching than the particular one we're dealing with. And one problem, and I mentioned this earlier, one issue that I've always had, and I think Ms. Hennis, you'll respect this as a real estate agent, that, any modification, alteration, et cetera, in the floodplain district to extent or amount of 50% or less of the market value. And that's always been a struggle for localities, dealing with other localities, of the market value of one structure with X number of acres is going to be a whole lot different than the market value of another structure with a whole lot. So
Mhm.
one suggestion I've always had, and I've actually bounced this off of DCR, Department of Conservation and Recreation, that provides a lot of input to this program and the flood ordinance, is changing that, having a zoning text amendment of saying that 50% of its assessed value, current assessed value, because obviously the Commissioner of Revenue every 6 years now does a reassessment of county property, and that's unique to every structure on the property. If you have a primary dwelling, you have one value. If you have barns and structures, you're going to have each of those
Kind
individual
value.
structures are
Right.
going to have its unique value. And that's also problematic of the market value. Going back to this particular case, okay, here's the market value. We know the entire market value of the whole property based on the last sales or based on a real estate assessment. But what is the market value of this one building that we're working on? That's been a challenge to
Right.
us.
Sure.
So it would be interesting. It would be. I am interested in zoning text amendments pertaining to the floodplain, but I'll obviously, as always, staff will lean on y'all on what direction we go in on those proposed amendments.
Sure.
On this particular property, it was a camp, overnight camp. And so if the new owners wanted to open up a camp again, would they be allowed to?
No, sir. That has to do with the time frame of the camp. If the camp has definitely been discontinued for years, let alone the 24-month period that the Code of Virginia allows to no longer be considered a non-conforming or grandfathered use, essentially. So if the camp had sold within 2 years and they continued that operation, that would have been a possibility. But since it's been closed, or I can't recall the last time it was opened as far as traveling in the area for, some time now.
Anything? All right. So what is our next course of action for you?
That's completely up to the direction that the planning commission gives staff. I mean, we would certainly be willing to explore other localities with similar floodplain ordinances, how they deal with it. I mean, that could be the next step. Generally speaking, we never need to, I should say, reinvent the wheel. But it's always enlightening to me on research and providing that research to see what other localities are doing. So that may be the next step.
To me, I would think that would be a prudent thing to see what other localities are doing and then make a determination.
So we could do our best, and I'm delinquent on getting back with this particular landowner. I'm a broken record. We hears that probably 20 times a day, but I will follow up with this particular landowner, and as time allows, I'm not guaranteeing that we would be able to, because this is in my opinion, has more moving parts than other zoning text amendments that we dealt with in recent past.
Right.
And so I can't guarantee you that staff will be able, with the time that it will take, I can't guarantee you it will be on the next agenda, but we will do our best to continue the process.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. We are on agenda item 8, Community Development Committee update, staff report.
Yeah, so as you know, Mr. Kramer has joined us, and Mr. Watkins, I apologize, Mr. Watkins and Mr. Kramer has joined us on the Office Community Development Committee that we're calling it. And in conjunction with that, we have 2 Planning Commission members, again, Kramer and Watkins. We have 2 board members, Supervisor Ayers and Supervisor Lyons, that have formed the Community Development Committee. And so historically, we've had a lot of committees going, that are made up of 2 members of the Board of Supervisors and staff usually get together monthly to talk about whether it's Building Grounds Committee, Economic Development Committee, those type of things. And so we all thought it was a good idea to have a Community Development Committee. So the Community Development Committee met once already. It was about 3 hours long and it was so long because Vivica, and I'd say that lovingly, obviously, she's done a pile of work on the comprehensive plan. So it was a crash course on the last 6 chapters that we've updated. We literally, Vivica, as always, did a tremendous job of updating the crew, the committee, if you will, on what's happened. So our next scheduled meeting, we are going to have monthly meetings, and they would be on the 3rd Monday of the month. And so our next one is on the 17th. And we will be discussing not only the immediate need for the Community Development Committee was the comprehensive plan to get additional feedback from planning commission members. Though the planning commission members could serve as the liaison between that committee and the full commission. Same thing with the Board of Supervisors. So the immediate need was for the comprehensive plan discussion, but longer term, I think we'll be obviously talking about zoning text amendments. In fact, the chairman of the supervisors, Chairman McDaniel, had instructed that this zoning text amendment be talked at the upcoming Community Development Committee. So with that being said, on the 17th, we'll be talking about zoning text amendments, not only this one, but other ones we need. We'll be talking about the economy chapter as far as it pertains to this comprehensive plan. And essentially it's a good opportunity for a group of people to get together and have, 2 hours or so to talk about trending items that are coming through the Office of Community Development Committee. Mr. Kramer may have more to add as
I
I
think
mentioned.
that's a good summary. I found it, since I go to the Board of Supervisors meeting, they were very interested in the comprehensive plan, that, some dates and stuff like that. And I think obviously we've got an expert right here. And
Right.
I think the two board members were very impressed with the data.
Absolutely. Yes. Vivek has done a tremendous job. So with that being said, Mr. Kramer brought up a good opportunity, and I need to bounce it off of the committee, but I think it's one coming up. Mr. Kramer's on be absent. So we're talking about, I need to talk about the committee prior to bringing it back to the Planning Commission, of potentially not having a rotating roster, if you will, but when one is out of town, that maybe another one could join us, and so obviously we can have 2 in the room, 2 Planning Commission members and 2 Board of Supervisors members, and it's not considered a public meeting until you have 3, obviously.
Right.
So it's critical to limit it to 2 because of the public meeting constraints.
And your next meeting is the 17th.
Our next meeting is, so we will have monthly scheduled meetings on the 3rd Monday of the month. And it was difficult, having 2 Planning Commission members, the staff time, all the other meetings we have going on, and 2 Board of Supervisors to find that common connection, that common date that we could meet. Ultimately, it would have been, for timing at the time, it would have been ideal to have it a few days before Planning Commission. But with this being said, we'll get in a groove of a few days after the Planning Commission and a solid week before the upcoming board meeting. And so I think moving
Those are
forward,
here in this room.
generally, that's where we met the
What
first time. 12 o'clock,
That was noon.
Noon.
12 noon.
Okay.
Yes. I
Very
was
good.
reluctant to say that out loud because I wasn't sure.
Well, I would love to come at some point. I'm going to be out of the country, but I would love to come sometime when one of them is not here, just to.
Sure.
be
Yeah.
part of it.
And we will discuss that on the 17th of that option, if you will. But I think it's a great option, even for Planning Commission members or even potential board members, just to have a full crew there, a full committee, I should say.
Right. Great. Thank you. Anything else from you guys? All right, then we will need to make a motion
Adjourn.
and
Second.
a second, and we are adjourned. All